Hello, everyone. I am here at the LCS studio in the new stage setup, joined right now by Justin Restaino, who is the creative director of the LCS. And this is our first ever interview. I think your first ever interview for something like this, right?
Yes, I'm not normally in front of the camera like this. I'm a much more behind the scenes, make cool stuff type of guy.
Yes. So there's a little bit of context setting here. I know normally I'd be probably sitting down with Jackie right now. Unfortunately, she's still out. But I'm happy to be chatting with you. And I'm also going to be doing an interview later on with Naz and John, who are kind of bigwigs up on the esports side, and obviously bigwig in the LCS. But I think they will get more of the angry community questions. For you, I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the LCS because I think there's been a lot of doom and gloom, but we haven't heard too much about the exciting things coming in 2023. So I'd love to dive in a little bit on some of that. So maybe first off, we can talk a little bit about what your kind of high-level goals are for this year.
Yeah, one of the big things that we are incredibly excited about next year is this new generation of pro players and how we can continue to build them up. Right. We just had our 10-year celebration last year, had a big climactic moment with Bjergsen and Doublelift bringing out the trophy in Chicago. And this year we are really focused on what that next generation looks like with our pro players. We don't want to forget about the veterans, right? They're a huge part of our storylines. Doublelift is coming back. The storylines this year has everyone excited, and same with us. So one of the big things that we're excited about next year is also building up that next generation of pro players the same way we did 10 years ago.
I was going to ask, how much did it ruin your plans when you're like, this is the old guard and now the new guard? And then Peter's like, psych, I'm back for more.
Look, Doublelift is arguably the GOAT if we want to go back to last year's conversation.
Sure.
And him coming back to the league does nothing but good things. We are all excited to see him back and see if he still has it and can hang with the young ones now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on stage yesterday, as we record this, was the Boomers versus Zoomers, and I think the Boomers lost. So perhaps,
but they took it to Game 3.
Yes, that's true. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. All right. Well, okay. So you're looking to focus a lot on telling the stories of these new players. But from a kind of look and feel of the LCS, should we expect a tonal shift at all between last year and this year? It feels like, I mean, the stage has changed. I assume there's a lot of different things changing.
Yeah, so there's a variety of things. As we saw at the kickoff tournament yesterday, we unveiled our brand new set design that we are all incredibly excited about. We've been working for months to bring this to life and think that this feels a lot more bigger, a lot more big, a lot more grand, a lot more immersive. And one of the things that we haven't unveiled yet, which we plan on doing on January 26th, which is our kickoff day, is our new Analyst area. There will be multiple different areas that we'll be able to shoot in, different vibes, different feels, and we're really excited about the level of production quality that we're going to be able to showcase.
Well, speaking of the Analyst desk, there was a big commotion about a week ago when Dash announced that he would not be returning to host the Analyst desk. I think a lot of people had a lot of confusion around what he described as like a non-constant host situation, what that meant. Some people perceived it as like budget cuts, so maybe you can provide a little bit of context on what the broadcast is going to look like now if there isn't going to be a constant host.
Absolutely. I'll say this right now. Budget cuts have not affected what we're doing on the LCS creatively. Look, one of the big things that we have heard about for years, our fans know, we've heard this new feedback numerous times, is how the LCS has felt like we've been trying too hard to be like SportsCenter or ESPN. And when we took a look at what we're wanting to do next year, we wanted to get out of the loop of having that traditional broadcast model, right? Where you have a host and some analysts sitting behind a desk, or in our case, more recently, more casual setting like this, but that loop still persists, right? Where you have your host, your analyst talking about the upcoming game, you get into the game ends, go to commercial break, go back to that analyst desk, talking about the game, talking about the upcoming game. And we really wanted to break apart from that and see how we can develop and innovate what the future of a esports broadcast can look like. Like, look, we don't feel like we have the leniency to be able to stay with status quo, and we want to be able to help continue to iterate on what we can do. So when we took a look back at what we are wanting to do for the broadcast next year, we took a look at a lot of the successes that we had of introduction of pro players on the caster desk, of Fudge interviewing Bwippo or Bwippo interviewing Fudge. And one of the things that we again took a broad look at was the host position and how that felt like a relic to the traditional broadcast model of sports. So we had a lot of success last year, right? We saw yesterday during the kickoff tournament, Sven and tenacity on the Analyst or casting the game. We want to develop and continue to do more of that. More of Core JJ talking about how he learned a new thing in game 3 of a playoff game, having beach balls flying around the audience. We want to continue to develop more of that. So breaking out of that mold is going to allow our talent to be able to tell a variety of more stories in unique ways.
What will that look like? Because I think a lot of people will hear, okay, you are coming back from a game, you go to the desk. It's hard, I think, for some people to imagine what it looks like if you're not going back to just people talking about the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any kind of example of like the type of content you're looking to put there.
We for what it's worth, we definitely still need to continue to talk about the game that just occurred. If a banger just happened, we need to make sure that we're analyzing it in the traditional way that we can. But doing that 5 games in a row, 10 games in a week for 8 weeks plus playoffs, it gets a little bit monotonous, right? And that's where it starts to feel a bit cold and the same. One of the things that we're trying to do is, as we're talking about and setting up the next game or talking about analysis, how can we do that in a more unique and fun way that allows the talent that is kind of heading up that broadcast segment, whether it be Emily or Raz or Jat or Mark, how can they own and continue to build that segment around them in different fun ways, whether it be Raz doing a hot pepper challenge or a dunk tank outside. Those are the ways that we want to continue to innovate and make the show entertaining for our fans and viewers.
You mentioned the new analyst desk setup. There's been some conversation, especially with the schedule change around Val coming in here on the weekends in the future, around what is LCS's, what is Val's. So for that analyst desk, you said it's kind of a new setup. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be a desk? What is it, like an analyst stage? What should people refer to it as? How are you referring to it?
We've used the word analyst desk. I started at Riot in 2016, back when it was an actual physical desk.
Yeah.
That has just become shorthand for a lot of people, and I think for fans as well. What we saw last year of this more casual setting, we still refer to internally as analyst desk, but really it's just kind of an analyst room, an analyst area. We love what we were able to come up with last year and saw a lot of positive sentiment coming back from that. And we want to continue on that. We want to double down, triple down, and continue to iterate on how that comes about. We have multiple different areas, so it'll be a similar setup. So we'll have a telestrator. We have a new, I'll just spoil and leak. Sure. We have a new giant video wall that we'll be able to use. This thing is very large. It's similar to what you'd see on like an XR stage. We have another video wall that we'll be able to use, and the whole area will be able to transform and take on the different team colors, team brandings. And we're also developing right now a virtual set that I don't have a timeline. We're still like incredibly early in the process, but to develop another area for us to have more variety in our looks and storytelling.
So there's a lot of people who will look at this, as I mentioned with the Valorant stuff, and say, okay, is this desk just getting done because they want a cool new desk for Valorant? Is the stage that we're sitting on just being done because they now need a setup that also accommodates Valorant?
Sure.
And so was this all just done for Val?
No, we have had this LCS, not this one, but the previous LCS stage, I believe since 2018 we debuted it. It might have been earlier or later, but I believe it was 2018. And it was time for a refresh. It was starting to feel a little bit stale. It had done its job. It served us well. But regardless of if a new sport was coming in here or not, there were large aspirations for us to be able to redo a stage. So this stage is very much LCS's to own. I think we're seeing a small little snippet of it here. But we're also a multi-sport league, right? That we're using the same space. So wanting to make sure that I was the main creative on this as well, with a much larger team helping out, and we were able to get input from the LCS team, making sure that we're able to provide all the needs that they have, the Valorant team, also just Riot in general on the different use cases that we'll be able to have for this space. The giant LEDs that we see here are going to be able to transform into whatever brand, whatever look that we want. And what you're seeing here isn't actually all that this set can do. So there are some more hidden secrets that are in here.
Oh yeah. I asked you about this yesterday when I ran into you. So I'm interested to see what you guys are able to reveal.
Yeah. A good example is sleds, right? Valorant has a very different look in terms of the gaming areas.
You call them sleds.
We call them sleds.
There's like the desk setup
exactly.
stuff on the stage. Yeah.
What we're seeing here is what the LCS version of that is. When we move to Valorant, it will be a completely different look.
How about the analyst desk? Is that all set up? Was that all created with Val in mind? Is that a shared asset?
Yes. So Valorant will focus on one area, but we'll be able to use all of it. Again, no one knows what it looks like yet, so this is all in
it's hard
theory.
To contextualize. Yeah,
it's hard to contextualize, but both sports will be able to use and be able to take over and brand those sets as their own.
Okay.
So no sport is going to feel like we're borrowing from another. Everyone is able to own and be able to brand and take over the set in their own look.
Yeah, I mean, how do you approach that? Because one of the things that one of the first things that you notice when you walk in, if you've been here previously for LCS, this is how I felt yesterday, is you used to have like the banners up with all the teams that had won. You used to see like the photos on the side of the arena with players lifting trophies and all that stuff. When that stuff goes away, I think a lot of people look at it and they say like, oh, wow, like they stripped a lot of the LCS out of this. You know, how do you make sure that stuff doesn't feel bad or that it doesn't start to feel like a generic set?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that was paying respect to our history within the LCS, right? The LCS has such a vast history celebrating past champions, past moments in esports. And one of the areas that we want to be able to do that, I mean, look, we have 18-foot tall LED walls that go 42 feet in depth. That is 72 feet wide, 1,000+ panels. We're going to be able to establish that history in a variety of new ways that are a bit more modern and fresh.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about sort of the production logistics, right? Like the analyst desk and this, even what the analyst desk breaks will look like, or analyst segment stuff as we're moving away from using the word desk. But how will the LCS, if at all, change the way it approaches storytelling? Because there's a lot of people that were getting excited about some of the changes you all were making in the summer. But I don't know if there's a plan to kind of continue that on. How, a lot of people really like Drive and those types of shows. I know at one point in time you guys experimented with having the shows that were running before the days. So what are kind of the plans to look at shoulder content, which is what a lot of people refer to that as these days?
I have been, you can ask everyone on my team, I have been bursting at the seams, excited about the content and wanting to let our fans know what we're doing. I'll give you the full rundown of what we have slated for Spring Split. Not everything, but from next week, we are releasing a features piece focused on off-season, focusing on the rookies that are up and coming, some of the returning players. What are the top storylines? This is a traditional features piece, such as like Eyes On or Drive. We're releasing one of those for next week as well to kick off what is the storylines as we head into the new season. After this interview, I am leaving immediately because we have a hero shoot for our hero film, much like the ones that we started to do last year that our fans really loved. That will be releasing on January 26th, the morning of our very first show day. We have a social campaign that is starting and kicking off very soon. We have one of the things I mentioned earlier was wanting to build up our pro players, the new generation of pro players. You'll see a reoccurring segment across broadcast every other week talking about we don't have a name for it yet, but we're just dubbing it internally as player profiles, a more high-end way of kind of getting to know who those pros are. One of the big pieces of content that I'm actually super excited about is something that we're actually doing with Dash. So Dash is still very much part of the LCS family. He bleeds LCS, and we all know that. We all love him here. I had a conversation with him last Friday, talking about some of this content series that we're going to be able to come up with him. And him and I are both ecstatic about what we're doing, and we want to utilize him in a way that is amplifying what he's incredibly good at, which is bringing out the best of our pro players, their personalities, their backgrounds, putting them into uncomfortable situations, and seeing who they are behind the computer screens. So we're really excited about that. We'll be doing a content series with him. He's going to be showing up in skits throughout the year, and he's also going to be coming back to host our finals, our spring finals, as well as our summer finals. So
okay, cool.
He's staying around. He'll be here. And then one other thing, I imagine you might want to follow up, but one other thing that we're doing in terms of those broadcast segments that you're talking about, we've actually internally developed, again, a lot of internal nomenclature, but a broadcast strike team to develop what those segments are and help us from a timeline perspective. And that's actually being headed up by Julian Carr, or Pastry Time. As people know. Yeah.
All right. We'll have to. I'll make sure that he knows that this news is dropping.
I talked to him yesterday. He knows.
Okay, cool. I'd heard rumors, but I was not going to spoil his fun. So that's cool. So Pastry Time still involved in the LCS. Dash still involved in the LCS.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The intent and goal never was to move away from either of those two. Julian has such a mind for content and creative and what our fans love. Every single meeting he's in story meetings or content meetings, he's just spitting out really, really great ideas, and we want to be able to make those come to life. And I'm really excited to give him the keys to the castle on that.
Very good. I think it's going to be cool for fans to hear that they'll still be able to know that familiar faces are involved in the LCS, especially since we saw several people say goodbye.
And look, this isn't a for sure thing by any means, but even Freak, right? He's just across the street on the game dev team.
Yes.
Maybe we bring him as a guest to talk about a patch note, right? Those are all things that we've talked about internally. Nothing for sure. Nothing's scheduled, right? But these faces we know and love are still here and part of the family.
Yeah, it's really good to hear. Beyond that, is there anything else that you want fans to know about that they should be excited about coming? I know I've asked you to spoil a lot of things that you guys usually like to keep under wraps. I appreciate you doing that because I do feel
I want people to be excited. I'm so excited. I love the LCS. Our entire team loves the LCS, right? There's a lot of that narrative, and I want to be able to get out in front of everyone and say, hey, look, this is everything we're doing. We're doing a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm excited to show everyone.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I know I was going to talk to and will be talking to Nas and John Needham in a short time, but bumping into you yesterday, I was really happy that I could grab you and sit down with you just because a lot of people want to hear some of the fun stuff that are coming up. So
happy to do it anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. 2023 is here, and we are back in action at TGI, bringing you all sorts of LCS coverage. I know you guys won't be able to see it anymore, so just watch my coverage instead. You'll get all the exciting news without having to, skip lunch. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Alienware for sponsoring. Go check out their stuff in the description. They announced a bunch of new stuff at CES. It's really hype. Can't wait for you to tune in for all my 23 coverage. Let's go.